Today is June 20th, 2009. I am Andrea Mott. It is a pleasure to conduct this interview for the Dakota Memories Oral History Project in Dickinson, North Dakota. Can you please state your full name, including maiden name?
Victoria Schaff Hecker.
When and where were you born?
North of Belfield, November 16th, 1924.
Have you ever heard an interesting story about your birth?
Just that a midwife.
Did you know the midwife?
No, they were neighbors to my folks. She was an old grandma.
And how many siblings did you have?
I have four brothers and two sisters.
And where were you in the lineup?
I was the three older brothers, and then one brother next to me, and the two sisters were younger.
Victoria, can you please share some of your earliest memories with us?
Which ones do you want?
The earliest thing you can remember.
Oh, I remember we went to Montana. My grandparents, we had an old Model T car, and I was about 5 or 6, and my grandparents went along, and my brother and sister, my sister was a baby, and my brother was about 3 or 4 years old, and when we got to Isham, Montana, coming on the way back, he wouldn't get in the car anymore. He was so tired of traveling already that he just wanted to. They had a heck of a time getting him back in the car. I remember we went to some hot springs, and they had steps going down, and we went just so far, and yeah. And
how long was that trip?
Probably a week, I don't know.
How old were you then?
About 5 or 6, I suppose.
Now, Victoria, can you describe what it was like growing up on the plains?
I know it was hard work. We lived like everybody else, I guess, just milk cows and grew our own food mostly. Didn't get to town. I remember my dad going to town with a sled in the winter, I suppose he took grain in and brought groceries back.
How often would he go to town?
Probably every 3 weeks. I don't remember that how often, but I remember when he'd come home, we'd be glad.
And what did you find beautiful or enjoyable about growing up on the plains?
Oh, we used to go to the Badlands, pick cherries or choke cherries, and I always loved it in the Badlands and always wished I could live there. And when I got married, we did live there.
So it was a dream come true?
Yeah. It was so peaceful out there.
What was it like compared to where you were raised?
Well, we lived right on the highway, and there wasn't that much traffic yet then, but we were always scared of the gypsies. The folks would tell us about what they did in Russia, I guess, how they treated the children. So we were always kind of scared. And our dog, he knew that he just didn't like them. He just, he knew that they were shifty, I guess, or something like that, yeah.
Did you run into them very frequently?
Yeah, they were quite often in the summertime, at least once a week. Then they'd stop and ask for something to eat or something. One time, my dad was in the house, and she was reaching around. Then he had nails in his pocket, and she thought, I guess, that it was money, but she got fooled.
Do you remember how old you were when that happened?
Oh, I suppose about 9 or 10.
Can you describe what the winters were like?
I don't, everybody just took them as it came, I guess. And every year is different, you know. Yeah. We used to have sliding and ice skate. We had a little, in the schoolyard, a little dip, and there was water would freeze in there, and we'd skate on there with our overshoes. We always had to wear, whenever I wore pants, I always wear long underwear and stockings, and the stockings we had rubber tire cut from a tire tube from those old Model Ts. Yeah.
And was that something you all made for yourself?
My
Yourselves?
Yeah, my grandmother used to give us wool stockings for Christmas. That was our Christmas present, and we hated them.
And what other kinds of clothing were typical when you were growing up?
I don't know, I guess just coat and cap and gloves and that.
Would your mother make clothes for you and your siblings?
Yeah, she made our clothes, yeah. She could hold up a piece of newspaper and just draw a pattern, and didn't buy no patterns.
And how many outfits was it normal to have?
I think probably two, one week, and washed it in the next week. Sundays we always had clean Sunday wear. Yeah.
And was Sunday wash day?
No,
No.
no, Monday usually. But I forgot what I was going to say.
Did your mother teach you how to make clothing as well?
No, I never. We had one of those treadle sewing machines, and I never could get the foot going, but so I never learned to sew. She did our sewing for us. We did a lot of patching socks, darning socks.
And would you embroider anything?
Yes, I embroidered.
What kind of things would you embroider?
Oh, table runners or scarves, pillowcases.
Now, was that a chore, or was that just something that
Just
you did?
something we, darning socks was the chore I didn't like.
And what other kinds of chores would you have in the household?
Oh, I had a list of all of them.
What kind of things would you help your mother with?
Oh, well, ironing and washing dishes and let's see. I couldn't have that list here by my look here on the side.
Well, can you tell me, did you and your siblings ever split chores?
What's that?
Did you and your siblings share
Yes.
in the chores?
Yeah. Then we had to milk cows, and in the summertime we'd gather cow bloppers for heat for when my mother baked bread or something. We didn't have electricity, and so or else she had a kerosene stove that had two or three burners.
Is that also how they kept the house warm in the winters?
No, they had a cold stove. Once in a while we'd pick up those corn cobs too, and they'd burn them in the stove.
Now, how were winter chores different than summer chores?
Well, we just had to milk mostly winter and carry water in and out. But summertime was shock the grain, and in the spring helped my dad fan wheat. I had to turn the fanning mill by hand. pick corn and in the fall.
Did you ever help in the fields in times other than harvest?
No, just pick corn.
Did your family have a garden?
Yes, yeah, we,
What kind of things did you grow?
well, just the usual vegetables. Yeah.
And was your mother a big canner?
Yes.
Can you describe how she would do that with the process?
Well, we had a wash boiler, I guess. They put the jars in there and boil them for 3 hours, like meat and beans and things like that. And we made a lot of jelly when we picked choke cherries. And she'd make the jelly first, and then take what was left and make wine, choke cherry wine. When company would come, they didn't have coffee. They'd usually serve some wine and apple and some kuchen. Yeah, that was Zuckerkuchen. That was the main thing.
And was that a typical visitor
Yeah,
fare
yeah.
at your house?
As they played cards or else just visited.
And what other kinds of meals would your mother make? What kind of things do you
She'd make, on wash day, she'd bake bread when it was hot in the summertime. And we'd have Dampfnudler.
What's that?
Well, it was bread dough. She'd steam it and had to let it rise though first. And we didn't dare open the cover or else it'd fall and be soggy. And Blachinga. She didn't make no strudel. She didn't. But Käsekuchen.
And what was the plachinga? Was it plachinga?
Yeah,
What
that
was
was dough with pumpkin in. And she made some with apple too. We liked that better than the pumpkin. But I like both.
What was your favorite dish that you remember?
Käsknip. Käsknip, I like them. Yeah, she made them too.
And
She made good chicken noodle soup, mostly on Sundays.
did she have to go out and catch the chicken?
Oh yeah, we raised our own. Usually older chicken.
And what other kinds of animals were on your family's farm?
Oh, we just had horses and cows and pigs and chickens.
Did you have to do any other chores with the animals besides milking?
No, just feed the calves. Feed the pigs sometimes.
And did your father, did he ever help in the house with the housework?
No, he'd help my mother when she hang up clothes outside. He wiped it, well, not while we were home yet. He didn't have to, but later on he'd wipe the dishes,
And how did your mother do laundry when you were growing up?
How did she do it?
Laundry?
Oh, well, she had this big copper boiler and she'd boil the white things in there first. And we had an old Maytag wash machine that had a motor on it. And had to carry the water in and heat it up and then carry it out.
And how long was it before your family had electricity?
I think it must have been just before, in the late early 1940s. Yeah.
How did
They had
that
a
change?
power plant, just a power, what you call it?
An electric power plant?
Yeah, and then the wind had to blow, to get it charged the batteries. If the wind didn't blow, we didn't have electricity.
Were there often times that you couldn't do anything because the electricity was?
Well, I don't remember that. See, I got married in 46, so it wasn't too long, and I was gone a couple of years before that.
And what was it like growing up with your siblings? What kind of things would you do for fun?
Oh, well, we played anti-over a lot, and horseshoes. Let's see, tag, hide and seek.
And what about school? Where did you go to school?
The school is right across the road, so we always went home for lunch. And it was country school, 8 grades. My neighbor was my first, lady from town was my first grade teacher. Well, they called it primary grades that time. It wasn't the kindergarten like they do now. They called it primary grades, and then I had her that year, and then for the next 4 years I had the neighbor boy was their teacher. And then another neighbor was for 2 years. I skipped the 6th grade. And then the 8th grade, my brother was my teacher. Otherwise, my mother boarded the school teachers before I started school.
And what kind of classes would you take? What
Well,
would they teach you?
all of the required subjects: health, geography, history, English. English language they called it that time. And penmanship and then on Friday afternoons at the last period we'd have drawing, or else when there was a holiday we'd have a party. School.
And what do you remember about your parties from school?
Well, they played games and
Were those the same games that you just mentioned?
yeah. Well, inside was like they have musical chairs now. We didn't have no music, but and then button, who's got the button? And
what's that game?
button, who's got the button?
What do they do?
You held out your hands and one person went by and dropped it in somebody's hand, and you had to guess the rest had to guess whose hand they were in. And let's see. Then they had alphabet. It had to guess what it was. Give the first letter of the article. Guess what it was. Let's see. Sometimes we got to play ball in school too. Got kind of rough sometimes. Had to watch so you didn't hit the windows.
Did that ever happen?
No. I know one time my brother was teaching and it was kind of muddy, and we had a basketball or something, and we had spots all over the wall from the mud. It hit the wall. I think we had to clean them up.
And what was it like having your brother as a teacher?
Well, I don't know. He made us study. He ordered some Warp's review workbooks, and we really learned a lot from them. He bought them himself. The pay wasn't very good, $45 a month.
Now, was this your oldest brother?
Yes. Then when we had graduation, 8th grade, we had to go to Medora for graduation. I remember.
Why so?
But
Why?
for graduation, or my brothers graduated, or when I did. I was salutatorian, and I had to give a little speech. I was petrified.
What do you remember anything about what you said?
No. And then we had a contest. Whoever got high that year in spelling got to go to Grand Forks, from highest in the county. So I got to go to Grand Forks. That was my first trip away from home. It was, besides that one to Billings that time.
And what was that like?
Oh, I got car sick, and when we got down there, they had a carnival, and I got to ride in a Ferris wheel, and I thought I was going to be sick when we stopped up on top.
Did you make any trips to town after that? Or was that
After I finished high school, I went to Montana teach. I was in Montana one summer. I started taking telegraph work. My brother had to go to the service, so I thought they needed me at home, so I just didn't like town life. It just didn't feel free. So I came back home and taught school then, that 2 years at the home school. And then the third year I went to Ashland, Montana. It was a country school. I went up there in the summertime to work on a ranch, and they needed a teacher, so then my permit from North Dakota was good for Montana too. So I taught there 1 year.
And how long did you teach?
Just the one. I taught 2 years at home school and 1 year in Montana. But in Montana you had to teach music and art too, where it wasn't required in North Dakota.
So when you were back home teaching, what did that involve?
What?
While you were back home teaching, what did you do?
What do you mean?
While you were teaching?
Oh, well, we didn't have much. Well, you had to teach all the grades almost, and then there wasn't a lot of times the kids would come up and ask for help, so you just about had to skip some classes. We were supposed to make lesson plans, but you could never stick to it on account of kids coming up and asking for questions.
And did you have many grades in one class?
Oh, no, only 1 or 2 in each class.
And what was a typical class size?
1 or 2. There were about 5 grades, I guess.
And these were all within one room?
Yes, 1 room.
Did you ever end up teaching any of your siblings?
My sister, she was in the 8th grade.
And did you have a good relationship with your siblings?
Well, the boys teased a lot, the older ones.
What kind of things would they do?
Well, they kind of they make fun of you, and when
Do you remember anything that they would say?
I don't want to say this, but I felt like walking off one time, running away. There were 3 older ones, and you know how kids are. They take it to heart.
So it was difficult being the first daughter after 3 sons.
Yeah. I guess all kids go through that.
What do you remember the most about your brothers at that point in time?
I don't know, my oldest brother, he was at a watch over us when the folks would go away, and then we'd play, and he'd be sitting and reading, and we were wondering if he was watching us or if he was. We got pretty wild sometimes.
And what kinds of things would you and your siblings do while your parents were gone?
Well, we played house or store and hide and seek and whatever. My brother used to make candy when the folks were gone, the older brother.
And how would he do that?
Making fudge, yeah. Well, just...
Was that only when Mom and Dad were gone?
Yes.
Would he have gotten in trouble?
I don't think so, but...
Did you ever make the fudge?
Not till I was married, I think.
And can you describe the house you grew up in?
Well, we lived in one house, and we tore it down in 1936 and built the other one. But the old one was just like an ice box. The water froze in the kitchen, and it was hard to heat. We enjoyed it, laying on the floor. It was, in the summertime, it was cool. Then when we built the other one, I was about 12 years old, I guess. And had to pull nails. We used the same lumber.
How long did that take?
Well, we lived in the garage all summer. Not in the garage, in the granary. Yeah, it took quite a while. There was no crop that summer, so the uncles helped, and we had one main carpenter. But they never finished out the upstairs till a few years later. We needed feather ticks for blankets, for cover. It was so cold.
How many rooms were in this house?
Well, three bedrooms and a living room and dining room and kitchen.
Did you share with your sisters?
Yes. Three of us slept in one bed.
And what was that like?
Well, the smallest one slept in the middle, and it was not like today each one has to have their bed. Yeah. Sometimes when somebody else would stay overnight, like cousins or something, would lay across the bed. You know.
Would your cousins come visit you frequently?
Not that often, very once in a while.
What about other family members? Did they live pretty close by?
Well, we had a lot of relatives. Grandparents lived a couple miles away, and cousins lived. Oh, they'd get together once in a while at my grandparents'. And I remember in the winter time, we'd come home from school, and it was a nice day. Dad would say, "We're going down to Grandpa's." So we'd lay in the sled and cover up, and didn't take long till we were down there, but we enjoyed that.
Did it take long to get ready for the sled rides?
No, just get blankets out there. He had hay and the straw and the bed.
And did you visit your grandparents pretty frequently?
Yeah, every couple of weeks, I suppose.
And were these your mother's parents or your
Yeah,
father's?
mother's. My dad grew up in they moved to Montana. So his mother, well, his dad had died. I never did know him. And his name was Victor Schaff. And he said that each one of the family should name somebody after him. And everybody did, and there were several Victors already, so my mother named me Victoria. But she'd come down in the summertime and spend a couple weeks with us, and we'd have to say our prayers, and she'd give us had candy, peppermint drops in her, or candy in her apron always, and she'd give us some if we said our prayers.
Were those homemade?
Hi.
Homemade peppermint?
No.
And what other kinds of things would you do at your grandparents' house?
Well, at Christmas we'd go down to my mother's folks, and Santa Claus, Bills and Nickel would come, or else the Santa, if we were mean, we always were told that if we were mean, the Bills and Nickel will come, and if we were good, the Santa Claus, Grishkin, would come, and so we always try to be extra good before Christmas.
Can you describe that tradition?
Well, I guess the Bills and Nickel, he was a bad guy, would get you, and then he'd come in, and my brother, he wasn't scared of him. He'd have a rope, and my older brother, he'd crawl under the bed and scared heck out of him.
And they would do that every year then?
Yeah, until we got bigger. And see.
So would your grandmother, was she from Russia?
Yes, yeah, they
Did
both.
she bring over some of those traditions?
Well, I suppose about the Christmas Bills and Nickel and stuff. Yeah.
And where did she come from?
I think Russia, Ukraine, I don't know, those different colonies, Russia, I think.
Did she talk about it?
I didn't pay no attention, when you're little you don't. I wish now I would have.
Did you grow up speaking German?
Speaking, yes. Well, we had the school teachers. Some kids, they couldn't speak English till they went to school, but we had teachers staying there, so we could speak English. All the kids that I went to school were Ukrainian. We were the only German family there in that school.
Were you treated differently because of that?
Well, we'd call each other names once in a while when we'd get mad at each other.
And I want to go back to holidays just for a second, since you touched on Christmas. Did your family celebrate Easter?
Well, the church and Good Friday, Lent. I mean, you couldn't go to dances or anything during Lent.
And what other limitations were there during that period?
I don't know of any.
Just the dancing?
Uh-huh.
Would your mother fix any traditional meal on Easter?
No, I don't think so.
And what about the 4th of July? Was your family one that celebrated the 4th of July?
Well, we used to have a couple times at our place, we'd have a picnic or something. The neighbors would come. And then we had a barn, and we'd have a barn dance.
And what kind of things were involved in a barn dance?
Well, there were about 3 different people with barns, and whoever had the best music, I guess, or if they heard about the dance, the people would go there. And I know we always had to make sure that everything was cleaned out of the mangers and every place, so there wouldn't be no fire. And then my mother would sell lunch. She'd bake real good buns and sell lunch midnight.
And how many people would usually come?
Oh, I suppose 100 or so. After a while, the floor got kind of warped, so, and then they started going to Belfield to dances.
Was
And
that
I
the
go-
closest town?
I,
Was that the closest town?
yeah, 10 miles to Bel. But we used to have house parties in the houses, and just the Germans get together, and the young folks, and have a local musician, pay him $5, and then the war started. It was a while had him for a while during the war, but afterwards there's nobody around hardly, so they have dances in Belfield then.
Would you go into town for
What?
those?
What?
Would you go to town for
Yeah.
those dances?
Yeah, my dad always made my brothers, if they wanted the car, he made them take us girls along, or else he wouldn't give them the car.
And what kind of music would they play at these dances?
Well, polkas and schottisches and like some country music like they have now.
Did you have a favorite?
I like the waltzes, or the two-step.
And what other kinds of things would young people do for entertainment besides dancing?
I had my list.
What about movies?
Movies. Well, when we were kids, we'd go to Belfield on Saturday evenings. They'd show a movie outside. I remember the old movie hall they had too. We'd go at Christmas time, see a free movie. And these were free too, that they had outside. Then later on they built a movie theater in Belfield. So then we'd go. I was older then already. Go to the movies.
And
Card playing.
how often would you get together to do that?
Well, when there was a name's day or something, or a birthday or something, then we'd play whist. When I went to high school, we stayed at my grandparents' 1 year, and they lived right beside the priest's house, and his mother loved to play cards. So every night after school, 4 o'clock, they'd have the cards dealt out, and one of us had to play with them. And then we played till 5, and then we had to eat, and then we had to go to church, a rosary in the evening. My grandparents were really religious. Living beside the priest, they just about had to. Anyway, at 7:30 when rosary was over, then they'd come back again and play cards. And they didn't worry if we got our lessons or not. But if there was a ball game or something when the priest's mother couldn't come over, then they'd ask, "Did you get your lessons done?"
And would your family, your parents, did they go to church pretty often then?
Well, Sundays. Well, before we went, they had a country church right close by. The school was right across the road, and the church was close by. So then they'd have church once a month or so when the priest would get there. In winter time, I don't know if it was all the time or not, but he always preached in that high German, and we couldn't understand it. Then, just in the early 40s, then they started going to Belfield. Just before that, he started preaching in English too, so we could understand it.
Was that just tradition?
Well,
Nobody
the
really
older
understood?
people understood it, but we didn't. It was different than, a different little dialect.
And what kind of traditions were associated with the church when you were growing up? Like, were there specific seating arrangements? Were there
The women sat on one side and the kids up front, and the men on the other side.
And were you confirmed?
Yes.
At any point? How old were you?
I suppose about 12. I remember that church that was bar house. They used to let the cellists and things in the church, and gypsies, I think, must have stole it. So then after that, we always brought it to our house.
And what do you remember about your confirmation?
I remember, I think it was my first communion. Or was it confirmation? I think it must have been confirmation. I didn't have any shoes, decent shoes. And then we went to Belfield. This store had an old style shoe, and I had to wear that. I felt kind of conspicuous there.
And what did they look like? Do you remember?
They were like tennis shoes, but they had a strap across, like a X across.
And what else did you, besides your shoes, what was your outfit for confirmation?
Well, not that, I suppose anything, but like for First Communion was white, dress and white veil.
And how long would the ceremony take?
Oh, I suppose an hour and a half or so.
And what was the church that you were raised in?
It was St. Boniface. The priest came out from Belfield.
How far was that? You said
10 miles. Then in the 40s, then they sold the church and we started going to Belfield.
And did you go to any classes that were associated with church?
Well, we had a catechism a couple weeks during the summer.
What was that like?
There were big kids and little kids and everything.
Was that at St. Boniface?
Yeah.
Oh.
But it was in Belfield that I was to First Communion.
And how old were you on your First Communion?
I suppose 6 or 7.
And what do you remember about it? Does anything stand out?
No, just see the picture, that's about all. I remember one girl, she must have had eczema or something. She was wiping her face all the while with some oily stuff, and her dress was all yellow from that oily stuff. Yeah, that's about all I remember.
You were young. Did your church ever have celebrations where you would have meals?
Well, they had, in June, I think, we'd pick flowers and scatter flowers outside. I don't know what they called that. I don't remember.
Were your parents strict because of religion?
Not as strict as my grandparents were. When we'd get pretty noisy, my dad would kind of quiet, to keep us quiet, he said, "Did you study your catechism?" But he never made us study it. We'd say that on Sundays, when we didn't have church, then my mother would say the rosary, and we'd all say the rosary. And my brother, he was such a character, and he'd try to make her laugh. And finally, she'd start laughing and couldn't hardly finish.
And what brother was that?
The second oldest one.
Was that a pretty frequent occurrence? Do you remember what he would do?
I don't know, but he was such a...
And what was a typical meal like
Oh, I
parents
suppose meat and potatoes, and if we didn't have noodles. A lot of times when I liked milk soup, rivel soup they called it.
And how would you make that?
It was little dough my mother would make little, rub it in her hands and just make little not balls, but little pieces and boil it in the milk. Or maybe they boiled it in water first, I don't remember, but I like that. Put a little salt and sugar in.
And did you all have seating arrangements?
Yeah, we all sat the same place. Each one got a certain piece of the chicken, had their favorite piece.
What was your piece?
I don't remember, was it a wing or something?
Now, how long would a typical meal take?
No, just in the farm you don't linger around the table very long. There's work to do. It's still that way. I think I said the other day, I think you can see who lived on a farm. They're always done eating first.
So there were always chores to do
Yes,
after dinner.
yes.
Now, when you were younger, did you ever go to any funerals?
Not really. I remember my great-grandma funeral was in Dickinson, and we had old Model T Ford, and the heater didn't work. That was the coldest feet I had that I remember. We had blankets along and stuff, but
It was middle of
then,
winter.
then when I got bigger, my grandparents, I guess that's about all.
Can you describe a typical funeral?
I don't remember, but they used to keep the bodies in the house at that time, I guess. Yeah.
Do you remember what they would do as far as preparation?
Well, somebody would, I don't know that. I suppose somebody cleaned them up, but somebody would sit with them all night.
Well, I'm going to ask a few questions about health care. Can you tell us about the health care that was available while you were growing up?
A county nurse would come to the school once a year, and she said I was underweight, so then she'd make us take cod liver oil, and I hated it. Tablespoon of cod liver oil.
And what was that supposed to do?
Well, I don't know, give you an appetite, I suppose, or what, I don't know.
How often did you have to take it?
Every day. Well, that was just that 1 year, I guess. But we never had any problems. We had the measles, but the only time my brother broke his wrist. That's about the only time I ever went to the doctor. And then my brother always had headaches, and then they had his tonsils out, and he never had no more troubles. Yeah.
And what was it like for him getting his tonsils taken out at that time?
Oh, I think it was harder than it is now. Yeah.
Where did he have to go?
I think he went in Belfield. Yeah. There was a doctor in Belfield.
Victoria, we talked a little bit earlier about the games you would play both inside and outside of school and with your siblings. Who did you usually play with?
Well, at home it was with my brothers and sisters, and in school with all the kids.
Did you have a favorite playmate?
No, just
And did you have, what kind of toys did you have as a child?
we didn't have very many.
Do you
Just
remember?
no, a little wagon. That's all I. Then I would make mud pies. By the schoolhouse, they had some scoria, and some of it was kind of coarse, and you could rub it together, and it would make a powder, and we'd mix that in with make pink pies. They were something special.
Would you do that pretty often?
When we were kids, in the summertime.
Now, did you have any store-bought toys, or were they
No.
mostly homemade?
I remember my first doll. I knew then that there was no Santa Claus. I was snooping and I found this doll, and then I knew that, and I got it for Christmas. Then I knew there was no Santa Claus. We played marbles. We had marbles, cards.
Now, Victoria, you mentioned playing marbles. What did that usually consist of?
Oh, we'd dig holes in the ground, or else try to roll the ball in there or marbles, or else just on the floor just have a shooter and try to shoot get as many marbles as we could.
Do you still have any of the toys you used to play with?
No.
Did your mother or father ever play with you?
Not that I know of.
Where was your favorite place to play?
We used to play in the barn upstairs, in the hayloft, and hide and things like that up there.
And would you ever, oh, sorry, what did you say?
Then when in the pig yard there were weeds about 10 feet tall, and the pigs would have trails in there, and we'd follow the trails and try to find each other. Anti-over we played a lot.
Did you ever actually play with the farm animals?
With the farm animals? No.
Did you ever want to?
No, I guess.
Did your family, did they have any dogs or
Oh,
cats
yeah,
that you
we
would
had,
play with?
we always got fleas, it seems like, from the dog. They'd bite.
So they weren't really pets.
Well, the dog was tame, and the cats too. But we used to play with the dog. That's why I say we got fleas then.
Did you ever go fishing?
Not when I was home.
Do you have any favorite rhymes or songs from when you were growing up?
I like country music. I used to fool around with the organ till I was about 13, 14. I learned finally how to play You Are My Sunshine, and after that it all got easy. It was easy to play any song then. I just played in the chord of C.
So, Victoria, you said your grandfather taught you to sing?
Well, I'm not a singer, but he liked it if kids could sing. He always wanted us to sing. See, when it's springtime in the Rockies, we'd sing it to him. He
Is
was
that
a
his favorite song?
yeah. He was a jolly person.
What do you remember about your grandfather?
Well, I remember when my grandpa and grandma used to come with the buggy with one horse. We'd see them from a couple miles away. We knew they were coming, and they'd come about once every 2 weeks or so. We were always kind of scared of Grandma. She was kind of stern, and Grandpa was jolly.
What kind of things
I don't, nothing. We'd go down there for the mother's family would get together down there. Then we'd see our cousins and play outside in the evenings.
And would your parents talk about when the times when they were raised, what that was like?
Well, not too much. My mother was the oldest of 11 children. Well, they weren't all born yet when she got married, but they had to carry water from a creek, and it was a hard life. I think she was in the 4th grade, went to the 4th grade. School was quite a ways away. Dad didn't go to school. He had a herd sheep. He liked that because he didn't have to go to school. So all he could do was write his name, but I don't know why we never taught him how to read, but he listened to the radio a lot.
Now, what kinds of programs would he listen to on the radio?
Well, they'd have Amos and Andy or the news. And let's see. My mother listened to a couple soap operas, and Stella Dallas, I think it was at that time already. I remember Hop Harrigan, that was on the radio.
Was there a show that you enjoyed a lot?
On the radio you couldn't, I didn't listen to those, but we listened to Amos and Andy, that was my favorite.
And what was Amos and Andy? Can you
It was
describe
two black colored guys, and they were comedy. It was funny. One was smart and the other one was dumb. Not so smart.
And how often would you listen to these radio programs?
I don't remember if they were on every week, I suppose.
Were there other kinds of things you would do as a family other than listen to the radio?
Play cards.
Now, you mentioned you have a rather large family. You said your mother had 10
Oh.
siblings.
There were 11 in her family. In mine there were 7.
What were family gatherings like?
Well, like I said, her brothers and sisters would get together on holidays or birthdays or names days.
And I know you mentioned your mother cans. Did your family do its own butchering?
Yes.
And can you describe that for us just a little?
I hated it. We'd be in school and we'd have to clean up that greasy mess when we came from school. We hated it. They did it all in one day, but my mother rendered the lard then the next day. That was a messy job too.
And what was that?
Oh, just fry the lard to liquefied, and then with the what they call it, with the crisp stuff, then they'd make soap out of that, lye soap. That was strong. We used that for dishwashing. We didn't have soap like they do now, and that would leave a scum around the dish pan, and had always keep the water real hot so that scum wouldn't form on the. It was smelly too.
What did it smell like?
Oh, like lye, I suppose.
Is that the same kind of soap you would use for yourselves for bathing?
No, we had other soap for bathing, but this was for washing dishes. It was mostly Lifebuoy, or there was another I can't remember the name of it now. It was real coarse. Lava soap. That was for the greasy hands.
Can you tell us about, your family bathroom? Did you have a
Out,
bathroom in the house?
outside. I never had an indoor bathroom till 1972, 73.
What was that change like?
Oh, it was everybody, always somebody at night, somebody had to go out with the other one. They were scared in the dark.
And how far away from the actual house was that?
Oh, so I suppose 50, 75 feet probably.
And was it ever moved? Did they ever move?
Yeah, they'd dig a hole, and when that was full, then they'd move it and dig another hole. I had a little seat and a big seat, and this little one was lower down. We used catalogs for toilet paper, or else the peach wrappers. We didn't have toilet paper in those days.
So how big was the actual interior of
Oh,
the house then? Still pretty
just
small?
big enough for, like, if two people went in at the same time.
And can you tell us about the baths?
Baths.
The bathing process
Oh,
was like in your family?
the big tub had to carry the water out. Like they used to say, the youngest ones got the bath first, and then the older ones. Right beside the coal stove. Had to keep it warm.
And how frequently?
I suppose Saturdays, once a week.